good day, Miss Alexis Alcantara. I am Nicolay Bawalan, and today I will discuss about the fundamental principle of international humanitarian law. Let's start with the history. It's begun with the first Geneva Convention for the amelioration of the condition of year 1864. It was influenced by one of the bloodiest battles of the 19th century in 1859. Henry Dunant, a Genevan businessman, witnessed the aftermath of the Battle of Solferino, a battle in the Second War of Italian Independence. This influenced him to publish a memory of Solferino in 1862. He also proposed a solution that says all nations come together to create trained voluntary relief groups to treat battlefield wounded and offer humanitarian assistance to those affected by war. This laid down the foundation for the Geneva Convention and led to the establishment of the International Red Cross. Geneva Convention is a group of international laws for the humane treatment of wounded or captured military personnel, medical personnel, and non-military civilians during war or armed conflicts, while Red Cross is a committee that was formed to explore different ways to implement Dunant's idea. 12 nations signed the first Geneva Convention on August 22, 1864, agreeing to guarantee neutrality to medical personnel, to expedite supplies for for their use, and to adopt a special identifying emblem. So now let's move on to the importance of humanitarian law. The word humanitarian is defined as a person promoting human welfare and social reform. So humanitarian law gives importance to those people who are not part of the war, like the civilians, and also those who have ceased to take part, such as wounded, shipwrecked, and sick combatants and prisoners of war. It also importance in terms of making sure that detainees are treated well and humanely, and that their basic necessities are being provided. So now let's move on to the basic principles of international humanitarian law. The first one is distinction between civilians and combatants. It says that there should be a separation between the civilians and combatants to avoid bigger damage of war and to avoid affecting those innocent people who don't want to include themselves in a war. Next is the prohibition attacks against those hors de combat. Hors de combat is a French term that means out of combat or person who are incapable or of performing their ability to wage war, those who are sick and wounded prisoner of war. For example, when a soldier surrender, they are prohibited to attack that person. Next is the prohibition on the infliction of unnecessary suffering. It doesn't allow unnecessary punishment or suffering. Next is the principle of proportionality, wherein it limits and protects potential harm to civilians by demanding that the least amount of harm is caused to civilians, and when harm to civilians must occur, it needs to be proportional to military advantage. Next is the notion of necessity, where the dominant notion within the framework of international humanitarian law is military necessity. It is often the principle which clashes most with humanitarian protection. Military necessity permits armed forces to engage in conduct that will result in destruction and harm being inflicted. The concept of military necessity acknowledges that under the laws of war, winning the war or battle is a legitimate consideration. And the last one is the principle of humanity. It says that all humans have a capacity and ability to show respect and care for all, even their or sworn enemies. The notion of humanity is central to the human condition and separates human from animals. The implementation of international humanitarian law, also called the law of war, cover all measures that must be taken to ensure that the rules of international humanitarian law are fully respected. These measures are important in making sure that both civilians and the military personnel are familiar with the rules of humanitarian law, the structure, administrative arrangement, and personnel required for compliance with the law in place. Violation of humanitarian law are prevented and punished when they do occur. And that's all. Thank you.